if you give someone drugs, that's the same as a sale. And what's happening now, so let's say somebody comes up to...
Everybody passes a joint at a party.
Well, not even that.
You've given somebody a drug.
I'm going to give you the most common example that I see, and that is that, let's say that you have some hydrocodone or Oxycontin or something, which is a painkiller. Now, let's say a friend of yours came up to you and said, you know, I've got a problem with my back. If you just hand them that drug, don't ask for anything in return, that is still that's a felony.
And who hasn't given somebody?
Well, I don't.
You know?
I'm not advocating.
No, I realize that. But this is the craziness of the felony laws.
Well, the problem I see is that, again, what we have done is we try and litigate behavior now, all types of behavior that at one time was considered non-offensive. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was funny we talked about the criminal mischief, the Tiger Woods incident. And I don't want to get into this too far, but...
Well, we've seen enough of it on television. It's insanity, but
well, let's reverse the thing. If Tiger Woods was to chase his wife down the road and beat out the windows with a golf club, he'd be looking at felony criminal mischief charges.
Really?
Without a doubt. And I am not seeing at all the domestic violence advocates and everything else that talk about domestic violence. I don't see anybody asking for her to be arrested. Now, if it was the shoe was on the other foot, there'd be a line out the door.
Well, he was screwing some other broad. That'd make a woman mad as hell.
But I'm just saying. But
I mean, that's what they say. I'm not sure of that.
I don't know what happened there.
He's admitted that.
But that's not a reason to chase somebody with a golf club and beat the car, is it?
Well, how many people? Who was the Jack Nicholson? I think took out his golf club and beat up a car one time in traffic.
Yeah, one of the other problems that the Tiger Woods situation demonstrates that's wrong is if it had been Tiger Smith and his wife Elin, they'd have been charged.
They both would have been charged.
That's right. They both would have been charged. He'd been charged with domestic violence. She'd been charged with felony criminal mischief. They'd both been in jail for a while, and they both might wind up with felony records. But we have this icon from the golf world and his beautiful wife, and well, you know, that's misunderstandings happen.
Are you suggesting, Jim Subjack, that there are different laws for different people in terms of famous and rich get off and the poor people get screwed?
Not all the time. There's certainly an effort to make that a little bit different, but you can see it on just little things. Traffic stops, it depends on who the person is that's being stopped as to whether or not they get a ticket.
Or a drunk driving ticket, I might add, which is a felony after, in some states the first one is now, they're trying to make it a felony.
Wow. Well, actually, they just changed the law in New York to say if you have been, and it takes effect, I think, December 18th, which is if you are drunk driving and you have a child 15 or under in the car with you. It used to be endangering the welfare of a child, which is a Class A misdemeanor. Now it's a Class E felony.
So there you go. You're first drunk driving. If you got your kid with you, you're going to jail and you have a felony, you lose your job, you never can work again, really.
Pretty much.
And I think what has happened, and Jim, I think, will agree with me on this, and it's very strange, and that is not very strange. What has happened is this. The legislature, when it comes to passing some laws, whether it's against drunk driving or many other, they become single-issue driven. There's not enough time for debate. In other words, let's just take this example. Now it's going to be a felony if there's somebody under 15 in your car after December and you're caught with drunk driving. Let's say you're driving your grandkid or something, whatever. Now, should you be doing that? No. But can anybody stand up and have a rational debate on whether or not that should be a felony? Because as soon as you would to question, let's say you're a legislator, let's say you're an assemblyman, if you were to go into a rational debate and talk seriously about it, the headline would be, Assemblyman Beverly Smith is for drunk driving. It's not.
It's a political matter.
But it's the way it's reported. And I think the last time, Jim, you weren't here, but the last time Jim and I were on, one of the issues that I have a very difficult time with is that none of us, and we've defended and prosecuted serious sex offenders over our lives. And none of us have any problem with the registration of sex offenders, what we would consider seriously bad sex offenders, those that are predatory, forceful rapists. I mean, there's people that have abused children, etc. I don't think there's ever going to be an issue about that. But nowadays, if you have a 19-year-old male or female that has sex with a 16-year-old, which we know is going on throughout
Well,
the
they're called
county.
Romeo and Juliet romances in high school.
Yeah,
that
they're-
every 17-year-old kid is banging some kid
Well,
who's
I don't-
under 17.
I don't want to get into
All
the,
right,
I don't want to make,
But what you
I'm
now
saying-
could do is put every gall darn kid in high school, or male anyway,
Oh,
away
Anthony, no,
with
no,
a lifetime of felonies.
Well, what we're talking about now is that situation, which ends up if they do have consensual sex and he or she is 19 and the individual is 16, it becomes sexual misconduct. And in the legislature, because they went forward, they now become registered sex offenders.
Yeah, for life now. Wherever they go, they are monsters.
And you know what else the high school kids are doing, which is really
Oh, the sexting.
the sexting.
Oh, my God.
In fact, I read yesterday that up to 20% of high school kids and younger kids are sexting. That, for those that you don't know, are they're sending sexually explicit photographs on their cell phone to their boyfriends, to people like that. Well, the boyfriend, and it happens all the time, we're talking about kids that are 16, 17 years old. 16 and 17-year-old kids don't have the level of maturity necessary to operate their lives for the rest of their lives because they have no experience, they don't have much guidance in that field, this is all new to them. And like most high school romances, they ultimately break up, and if it's the girlfriend that breaks up with the boyfriend that gets angry, and then he starts to send his pictures to everybody else, all his buddies, and say, see what she's really like, or to her friends, see what she's really like. He has committed a felony, a federal felony, punishable by a minimum of 20 years in prison. Now, that's the type of stuff that, as Billy was talking about, the issues, that they're issue-driven, they don't take time to deliberate anymore. Whenever there's a problem, and I think everyone would have to agree, whenever there's a problem in the criminal justice system, rather than to research it, evaluate it, and try to come to a solution, they pass a law to outlaw it. And they've come up with some crazy litigation. They have one, for example, that, think about this. Do you know how long it took New York State, and think of how long it takes New York State to do anything?
The Rockefeller law.
The Rockefeller laws, it took them 20 years to change it. But New York State, after 9/11, passed their own anti-terrorist bill. Do you know how long it took for the governor to sign it? Now, we're talking about debate it, enact it, sign it, and make it effective. 6 days. It took them 6 days to pass terrorism laws. And am I saying that terrorism laws are bad? No, but they should have taken some time. One of the things the terrorism law does, for example, is it enhances the penalty if you intentionally commit certain acts that are related to terrorism. One of the crimes that's enhanced is manslaughter second, which in New York, by the way, is a reckless crime. The law has consistently held you can never intend to be reckless. Therefore, had they looked at what they were doing, they could have recognized that they were passing a law that was unenforceable in that respect at the very beginning. But of course, you have to, because public opinion was running high, you have to look like you're protecting your constituents, when in fact they're doing a disservice to their constituents. I think that criminal laws need to be enforced, they need to be enacted, they need to be studied, but before you pass something that has consequences to all of society, not just to the individual who commits the crime, you need to review it, evaluate it, determine what the problem is, and how best to solve it. And increasing penalties isn't necessarily the best way to solve a problem.
And
Well, as I was going to say with Jim, what I tried to make the point before was that these knee-jerk reactions to these laws, and because they become so quick, that if anybody was to stand up and say, and even have half a debate, or say, let's reconsider.
let's look at it anyway.
Let's look at it. Let's look at what are we doing with the Sex Offender Registration Act, as I said, with the sexual misconduct thing? What does this really mean? I mean, how is it going to affect people as far as, now, if a responsible state senator or state assembly woman was to stand up and make that point, the headline wouldn't be,
Let's make sense out of the law.
Right. No, it would be you are for sex offenders.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with the media. And I have a tremendous and I have a very serious problem with the local media, especially the local media, because the local media, they do not report anything that happens in the criminal justice section of the county court. They allow nothing more than the district attorney to put out his press releases or his convictions on a Monday that are in the paper, But there's never anybody in court to find out what happens with a case. There's never anybody in court to find out what's going on with a jury trial.